Oh, that was like John Legend, and his daughter was the mermaid. What was it, like Emily Bear? And she wrote a bunch of songs for that show that you like. What's it called? Wonderton?
Oh, wait, Bridgerton?
Bridgerton, yeah. And so that girl,
Wonderton?
Emily Bear,
Question might be a little similar to what I just asked about being creatively inspired, but what's been one of the most surprising or challenging moments throughout your entire musical journey? And how were you able to push through it?
I guess like a year and a half ago, I had two issues with like two pretty stable gigs that I had. And then this is another thing I run into. If people typically had a 4-day weekend, musicians would be better off because we get asked to do work on Saturdays all the time, right? And so people are only off Saturday, Sunday, and like some weeknights. And so like that's the amount of time you can typically work. There are very few gigs that take place outside of that realm, unless you're like on vacation or like it's a funeral or something or you're playing at Disneyland. And so the bummer thing about being a musician is like you have to turn down so much work because it's all at the same time. So I do that regularly. Like, it's like, well, I'm already booked for this Saturday, so it is what it is. But that's like, opportunity loss or whatever. But I
Mhm.
mean, it's the nature of having a job. Like if I had a 9 to 5, you turn down a lot of other offers because, but I ran into this thing where I was working a bunch with this one group. And then I had to like part ways with this other group. And then meanwhile, there was like this like long standing recurring gig that I had had for a few years. And I was a music director, but I was kind of like burnt out of it. And so two of those like long standing commitments kind of fell through like in the same like week. I had a relative who'd passed away also that same week. And I was just like, man, I just got hit.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That was rough, and I felt it, I was really lucky that for a week or for like a month, like I'd worked so much and burnt myself out. I had some money to chill on, I had a minute to chill. Whereas, like previously, there were parts of the year where I'd just be working a ton. Usually, the last quarter of the year, because you have like Oktoberfest, and then you go into like holiday season, and so it's just like you're just like, well, there's money, go get it. But then you're just like your brain's spinning because it is a little bit of a seasonal profession too. That all happened at the same time, but it was like one of the first like Decembers or Novembers or whatever where I didn't have to work that much. So it was that, but it was also like I had just a great support system. Like I had a lot of people who were like able to like listen to me and like because it was a very obvious external issue with other people. People were like, yeah, like that sucks, darn, and honestly, it turned out to be like for the best. I like lost a lot of work. A lot of regular work, but it did really turn out to be for the best. And things did, kind of flip back my direction. And I also wasn't like burnt out. I was just sad, but I wasn't sad and burnt out. When you're sad and burnt out, good luck processing that. So that was, I don't know, I'm not being particularly specific about it, but just a lot of things crashing at the same time. You just cry, you just, go to the beach. I don't know, hang out with people that make you feel better and just kind of trust in the process. And I did get through that, and then things did get better after that point. So, it really was for the better that all that happened, but it was painful in
Mhm.
the moment.
No, I'm glad to hear. I'm glad you were able to get through all of that. There were people there to help you through it as well.
Thanks. Yeah, that's the thing. I have a friend who like lost her place to live in the fires recently in Topanga, and she's just like, you just never realize how strong like your community is until things really hit the fan.
Hmm.
And people, you see people's humanity. So it's nice. Sometimes we take that for granted.
A response
Luckily,
like
she was
that.
a renter. It'd be different if like her house had like burned down and she lived there 30 years. That's what we're dealing with in LA right now. I'm not. I'm very lucky.
One I thought definitely popped in mind when you were talking about like turning down gigs when so many come in on the same day. What prompts you to pick one over the other? Would it be like, oh, I said yes to this person first, so I'm just going to say yes to them? But what if the other one's like paying you more? How do you decide if you have two people coming at you for the same day?
I mean, I like to personally say like typically who comes to you first and that like reliability is key, right? Like and in the artistic professions, like there are a lot of unreliable people. So
Mm-hmm.
being reliable and being a person of your word does make you stick out. So that's one. I mean, when you're picking one over the other, yeah, I mean, like if
Yeah,
you have the option,
if they both come at you like the same time,
I
then
mean,
like
if you're lucky enough to be able to pick when both offers are on the table, right, you can just pick the better client, you can pick the better pay, like balls in your court. When you've committed to something and you're like you get a better offer, that's a really good question. So it's like if one thing is really small and one thing is really big, then yeah, you can see if you could substitute out the work that you already committed to and be like, hey, it is what it is, but I will get someone just as good as me to cover this. That's one way. If you commit to something, that's why a lot of people will like charge a certain amount. A lot of times they're like, why is a wedding band charging so much? But it's like wedding bands get booked the Saturdays of summer. So, if you like the opportunity cost of like committing to something, it's like, yeah, why do I have to give such a big deposit? It's like, well, if you bail last minute, they have to turn down five other offers or whatever to do the gig. To do like, so it's a lot of times it's just kind of you're paying for the availability and you're paying for just like a competitive time slot and a competitive season. That's why it's always cheaper to like have a wedding in like January. So like you're competing, like all the vendors are like, please,
hire
Um,
us, book us.
that and then that's when I travel. I'm like, December is usually crazy, and then I'm like, January, everyone's broke and doesn't want music. The restaurants are like, come to us. We have no business anymore. And so that's when I'm like, great, I'm gonna like go travel, and it's cheaper to travel. So that's one. And then also, yeah, when you pick gigs, you just also prioritize like what projects you're in. If you're in a project where like it's a bigger commitment to you than another project, that's another thing. And you just have to choose like, what group you commit to or whatever. Sometimes you have to make a choice of like, let's say if I'm choosing something from like original music, sometimes those gigs don't pay as well as like cover music. So you're like, oh, I have to choose to take a pay cut to do my own thing, and that's just sometimes what that is. And so it's a constant, but it's navigatable, it's the same thing of like good people, good music, good pay, right? So like if
Mhm.
you have a compass and you guess, and sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're so wrong. And that's okay too. Like I played a gig a month ago and I was like, I should not have taken this gig. And I'm like, that's part of it.
So, as a multilingual singer and soloist, how do you balance all the moving parts when you're planning your performance, your show, from language to the set, the performance, the song list, the instrumentation, having a band, not having a band? How do you balance all of these moving parts?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Easier to not have a band, admittedly. I'm learning that. Like, I'm like, oh, if I can play alone, just less factors, less managing. So being able to do that helps a lot. Playing with a band, it helps if you play with them like frequently enough that or their schedule, that they're committed enough to like, you can be like, hey, can we do this gig? And they're like, yeah, we play all the time, of course. That can help with the singing and the skill sets and the multilingual, like there are tricks for multilingual singing. I think in like I took a college course singing, and like one of the assignments at the end of the first class is like you have to sing a song in another language. Opera singers have to do that all the time, but it's different. Like it's easy for me, it's always easier to sing in a different language than it is to speak in one. So for years, for like a decade, I like played music in Spanish and sang in Spanish,
I can
like
see
in
that. I
Spanish
feel like
churches and stuff.
it's maybe like easier to catch the rhythm of like another language when you're singing for speaking it.
It's a beautiful thing too. They've done some studies on this, but the style of music can change based on the language patterns. So based on the way that the cadence of the words, sometimes the music will adjust. And so you'll see that like certain melodies and cultures might resonate with like a certain speaking pattern. It's fascinating. And I'm still learning. I mean, I've done a ton of like Spanish church music, but now I'm kind of doing some like French music. When I do like Edith Piaf music, it's like the timing, it's just like she like sings the line, it sways, someone's smoking a cigarette, and then we land. It's never perfectly like on the beat. It like flows a little bit, and I'm like, and that is a little bit of like like French music, even French classical music can have a similar tendency, and that's great. Like I love it because it's kind of different. After a while, you start to relate different styles to like different genres. Like there's been a lot of jazz music fusions with like Indian classical music because Indian classical music has so much improvisation. Oh wow, these you can throw these together and like there actually is a relationship that makes a lot of sense. Or like that's the cool thing about studying like all, music from all different types of cultures. Or Appalachian music is, like a pentatonic scale, and like that's very similar to like if you hear like, I don't know, East Asian music, and it's like the same kind of pentatonic scale. So cool.
You've worked with so many different kinds of languages and within world music. What's your top three?
Honestly, I sing the most in English and Spanish. French, I'm just kind of bringing in, but French I could use more work on. I mean, yeah, I would love to sing slightly. I think I'm gonna start working more on my French, but Spanish for sure. Like I grew up in LA. LA is 50% Latino, right? Like I mean, when I would play like Spanish church music or whatever for work, but like also I just grew up. I'm like half Filipino, so it's like you're in a Catholic church. The way people talk and the cadences of and it's really interesting because I mean a lot of people here are like from Mexico, but then when you go and you hear Spanish in like Florida, you're like, what is this language? It's so different because it's very like Caribbean or like,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
different parts of Latin America
Wow. Oh, that's interesting.
or
I
even New
didn't realize.
York too. Yeah, New York, I'm like, what is this language?
Oh, wow.
So
I did not realize that. Even between like New York and Florida and LA, the Spanish is different.
very much so. Yeah. Like in LA, like Southern California, LA, I'm like, this, I know what this Spanish sounds like. And when I went over there, I was like,
You're like, wait a minute, I can speak in this.
yeah.
Like, never mind. Never
Nope.
mind.
Nope.
And what's a third language that you haven't learned yet or haven't sang yet and would love to?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would love to sing. You know, I was in Portugal last summer, and there's just so much music in Portuguese. I think a lot of it's Brazilian,
Hmm.
and Brazil is just such a music capital. Like, I didn't realize it until I was in Portugal, and I'm gonna go to Brazil later this year. And I was like, whoa, the relationship to music coming from, Portuguese, Brazilian music is like, whoa, super cool. So, very excited about that. And I like, when I travel around, a lot of popular music is based around like English speaking American music, which isn't very exotic. Like, you're like, wait, I went to Vietnam. I wasn't trying to hear Lil Jon and the East Side Boys, or whatever, Big Sean or whatever, like Cardi B. And then you're like, I guess that's what that is. But yeah, that was really cool about going to Portugal. It's just like there were so many songs in Portuguese, I think. Never heard before, but they were beautiful. And there's so many like colorful timbres and rhythm, the relationship to rhythm is just beautiful.
All right. So, what advice do you have to give to young, emerging indie musicians who are trying to find their own voice, their own audience, and trying to create their original music?
It's a good question. So trying to find your own voice and trying to find your audience are almost two different things, but they're kind of related. I heard this once, and I think there's some credit. So there are things that come like from the heart, are completely your outpourings of, what come from you. But then there's also like a sweet spot of like, for example, I write a bajillion songs all the time. A lot of the songs I write are like in a style where I'm like, I don't know if it really fits like the music that I play on stage. A lot of artists have that issue. So some artists will have side projects or they'll write for film and TV. And so they're like, yeah, I'm gonna write this like interesting genre, but it's probably gonna like go a little bit better with a different project or whatever. So finding your own voice, listening to the artists you really love, listening to the parts of those, like when I was producing my record, it's you make a list of like your favorite records and you just listen to them over and over. And you listen to your music that you love the most, like over and over. And you kind of get back into the nostalgia. What state of mind was I in? Maybe watch movies that help conjure that creative space. Maybe go to places that make you feel more creative. I think in like the artist way, they call it like an artist date. So
Mhm.
once a week, take yourself out and do something for the sake of moving your art forward and then make time for it, right? So make it a habit. Write regularly, even if the songs suck, even if it's painful to do, even if it means you have to sacrifice other stuff. That's okay because yeah, discovering your voice isn't going to happen if you're not putting in the time. And then finding your audience. I've honestly just been kind of following Jesse Cannon lately. He is like Muse Formation, and he's really good at kind of just talking about finding your audience from a very 2025, just a very current lens of how the music industry works. I think that's one of the biggest struggles is the music industry already doesn't pay a lot of money. It's really saturated, but technologically, revenue streams, they change so quickly. Revenue streams that were more feasible 3 years ago or 5 years ago have changed. And so keeping up to date on like what's the most up and coming like thing, it's hard. I mean, if you have a manager who gets it, great. If you have a label that gets it, great. If you don't, you need to find those resources. And I think I've had a lot of traditional business mentors who are fantastic, but music is like a different kind of beast. And so it's like, yeah, you use some traditional marketing principles, but like you're still an artist and you're evolving. And it's like you have to make space for that evolution while also kind of selling a product. It's weird. I think once I heard there's almost like the marriage of you being authentically what you want to outpour. There's a what part of it can you marry to like what kind of makes sense in terms of making something a cohesive thing for people to understand that they're consuming. Like if you write a record, the record can have 10 songs that sound 10 different ways, but if you have a record that lives in one world and it's like, people know what that record is and they know how that record makes them feel. And maybe you can have a different record that sounds a little different. And so finding the right space for like the variety of your musical outlets.
Really, really great advice. So this is going to be a bit of a
Thanks.
long form kind of a question.
Oh, okay.
In the past, I mean, even till today, LA is the entertainment hub. Everyone who wants to be any kind of artist moves to LA. Before, I mean, nowadays with YouTube and with social media, people live anywhere and become artists in their own right, doing whatever thing. But they used to, go to LA in flocks, and people still do go to LA in flocks to build careers. For musicians, it's like LA and Nashville if you want to do country music. In 2025 and going into the future, do you think that it is still necessary for people to have to move to LA or move to Nashville to have to make music or have a music career? Or do you feel that it can be done anywhere now?
I'm going to, what's the word? Disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
I was born in LA. I went to school in LA and I still live in LA. So for me, being in LA is a lot easier than most people. I've seen a lot of people move to LA. I've also seen a lot of people leave LA. I guess I'm going to say probably not. I have a limited experience. Like I don't live in like Asheville or I don't live in, Ohio. There's some people who are like on the road and they're all different types of arrangements, all different types of successful musicians. So I know for sure all the bands, especially now with the internet and like the niche marketing, I think it's definitely not necessary to be like LA or New York. The benefit of LA and New York, so you get to spend more money living.
The benefit of LA and New York, you get to spend more money to live there. Not make money, but
I mean, if you have a foot in, if you like the culture, if you can find a way to be here and not be stressing just to pay rent, if you have like a hookup or something, take it, why not? But if you don't, and it's like it's really hard for you to just move out here, then it's going to take some time from your art. The benefit of being in a big city centered around the arts is that you're around other creatives. If you can create a sense of community like remotely, and like collaborate with like producers remotely, mixers remotely, like other musicians remotely, cool. But I think it is a little bit easier when you're in like a slightly bigger city where the culture has some relationship to music that's like a little bit bigger. So it's kind of like big fish, small pond, right? Like you're a big fish in a small town. It's like, well, that's not the best comparison of reality. Because once you go to a bigger city, you're like, oh crap, no one cares, right? Or maybe they do, and which is fantastic, right? But I've always been a small fish in the biggest freaking pond. It's almost harder that it's well, I mean, it's harder, but it's like, potato, potato. The stakes are like higher. In LA, it's so much harder to get people to like care about what you're doing. Like when I was a kid, they always did like pay to play. So like all these teenage bands would be paying to play at the Whiskey a Go Go or on Sunset Strip, and they're just like, this is my dream. And it's like, yeah, I mean, these promoters are just making money. And I don't know how common that is anymore. I'm there, whatever. That is what that is. But I mean, being from LA also means you're around the greats, and you take that in. Like you get to consume more great music, you get to be around more great music. Like you'll casually walk into a bar and you will see your heroes. If that's motivating to you, cool. But there are smaller cities that also like maybe enjoy your certain type of music more. I think it also varies on genre. If you hit a certain point and you want to like get into the publishing world and you're close enough to Nashville, like yeah, why not? Or if you're in country, but if you're like for me, I play music with instruments, live drums, whatever, like singing violin. Nashville might even be good for me. I always feel like when I play in like middle America or like Texas or New Orleans or something, they love instruments. I'm not like a pop star with like backing tracks. I'm not a rapper. I don't do EDM. And I think
Mhm.
those genres, they're more popular maybe in the coasts or like in certain places where they're more popular. But that's just something to keep in mind because, yeah, I feel a little out of place in my genre in LA because LA is not like a big folk city or like it's not a big whatever rambunctious cabaret psychedelic folk thing that I do. Like I mentioned Jesse Cannon earlier, like he's like, you don't have to be famous in your hometown. He's like, honestly, that's just, so I think yeah, the internet does a lot, but the community, the support, like if you need to be around people who are like hustling, then cities do something of that. They are inspiring.
Also, if you like spending more money, so I mean,
If you like
big cities.
spending more money, I can lead you Anderson Pock's bar. They charge $22 for a mid-level margarita. So if you want to do that,
There you go.
but they do a live band that's pretty good and you can dance to them,
All right, very last question of the night. If you could go back and relive any moment from all your years of performing, which would stand out to you?
I would go back to being 15 and playing guitar in like a half garage in Gardena with my first rock band with like the 12, I guess we were 15 at that time or whatever, that I played like football and like went to an elementary school with. Yeah, I would love to relive playing in my first band. That was such a riot. That was the best time of my life.
That is so
I
cute.
mean, I'm not saying I mean, the best is still ahead of me, but I mean, the thought of like going back to being 15 and like skateboarding around the block and like my boyfriend at the time lived on the other side of the street. So when he heard us practicing, he'd skateboard over. And we had a drummer who was like younger and he would just like run away. He was very like hyperactive and he would like run away in rehearsals. And so while we were waiting for him for like an hour and a half, we'd play like street football or street baseball or whatever. Like there's just nothing like that when you just don't have a job. You don't have to think about making money or being important and you're just being a friggin' kid. I gotta say that was fun.
Oh my
And
god,
you're
that
playing music, and you're like, we're gonna throw this show.
at that point it's like it's not about there's no care in the world. It's just having fun and doing what you love and enjoying it, like really truly enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I wanted to like, oh yeah, we threw a backyard show at my house, and I remember telling my dad, and my dad's like, "You we can't throw a backyard show. We're gonna get sued. I've seen what you guys do at those concerts." And I got so mad at my dad. I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're being such a tool right now." But then I was like, then I realized like we did have like random mosh pits, and like once my mom had like a freaking camcorder in her hand, and she got knocked over in the mosh pit and just
Oh.
got back up, did not care. Like she's from the Philippines, she's fine, I guess apparently. And so like yeah, so I mean those times were pretty silly. I mean my mom was okay, but but yeah, those times were really silly and really fun and just like so fun.
Oh, I love that. That is so adorable and so cute. Yes, to go back to 15.
Yeah, I mean, people don't mosh to my music now, but I was just at Warped Tour and I was like, I kind of like moshing. I mean, did my back hurt after? For sure, but like it felt great in the moment. Or headbanging too, like oh, headbanging, like oh, so fun.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for your time, for coming on to my
Thank you.
show, and for talking about all of your experiences. And you gave some really great real world advice to anybody who's interested in being an indie musician. So thank you so much for that. And be sure
Thank
to
you.
follow Melinda West on your Instagram. Would you like to mention your Instagram?
Oh yeah, Melinda West Music. That's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I think my Instagram's funky. It's like a Melinda West underscore music, and I'll be releasing music 2025. So Melinda West on like Spotify, like toward the maybe 2026, like toward the end of the year. Please check it out, or feel free to message me or like DM me on some of those platforms. Thanks for listening and thanks for having me, Jessica. These are great questions. You're pulling an Oprah right now. You're doing
Oh my
it.
gosh, the next Oprah.
Yeah.
That's the goal. There you go. Well, again, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
well, we'll probably, I mean, when you have new music coming out, I'd love to have you back again and we can talk about your new music, like specifically about your
Oh,
music.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks.
thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Coffee Break Convo fans. You guys are the best.
Thanks for joining me. Keep learning, keep growing, and don't be afraid to write your own story. And we'll see you next time on Coffee Break Convos for another great conversation. Be sure to like and subscribe to be notified of new videos every week.